Back on the SportsMax Zone, it's all square after two tests of the Biosecure Series. The Wisden Trophy is at stake here as the host England completed a 113-run win in the second test at Old Trafford earlier on Monday. The Windies, chasing an improbable 312 to win, were dismissed for 198. Shamar Brooks and Jermaine Blackwood with half-centuries and Jason Holder, 35, offered the only resistance against the returning Stuart Broad, who took 3 for 42. Chris Wokes, Ben Stokes and Dom Bess had 2 wickets each. Now, final scores: England 469 for 9 declared and 129 for 3 declared. The West Indies 287 and 198. Joining us to review the day's play and the match is David Brooke. He's an England native, but he finds the Caribbean irresistible. So as a result of that, I'm not sure if he's happy at the England win today or devastated at the way the Windies were flattened. David Brooke.
I can't hide it, Lance. It was a tough day. It was tough watching today. I lived in Jamaica for 2 years, Lance, you see, you know?
Yes, I know you find the Caribbean irresistible, David, so I just want to make it clear to our fans that we know you're an Englishman, but your heart is in the Caribbean somewhere.
Yeah, it was a tough day's watch today, you know, just because that, as you say, you know, 312 was always going to be a big ask. It was too much to chase. And the question is, could they hold on? Look, it's. I think it'd be wrong to get demoralised about it. There's some positives one can take, particularly the batting of Shamar Brooks and Jermaine Blackwood. You know, that partnership looked good, and when those two were together, there was some hope. But ultimately, I think you have to sometimes pay credit to how the other team has played. And Ben Stokes, to me, what a test match he's had. You know, just to be able to come out this morning and score at will, that 78 and 56 balls to follow following on from his 176 in the first innings. And then whenever you needed a breakthrough, you throw the ball to Stokes and he gets you a breakthrough. He even one stage chased after his own bowling to the boundary to save a ball. You know, he even managed to get wickets for the other bowlers. He was the only person who appealed for a catch when John Campbell flashed outside the off stump. Sure enough, Ben Stokes heard something that even the wicketkeeper hadn't heard. Went for a review, it's out. So Stokes had, you know, such a great all-round match. Is there anything that he cannot do? And I think sometimes it's necessary to give credit to, you know, to the other team and to a couple of the players, him and Stuart Broad. You know, yes, there have been frailties on the West Indies side in the top order batting. That's been clear, but also credit to where credit's due to Ben Stokes.
Yeah, David, at some point during this program, we will be forced to look at the possible changes, if any, that you would recommend for the West Indies in the third and deciding test match coming up this weekend. But how dominant was this England win? I was making the point at the top of the show that England declared twice in their innings. First innings, second innings, we lost an entire day and they still ended up with a handsome victory. So this was a lopsided match in many ways, and based on momentum, you've got to consider them favourites to win the series now.
Yeah, they've got the momentum, Lance. I agree with that. It all seemed to change round about, what was it, that Sunday, wasn't it, where we went from comparative comfort in their first innings, about 189 for 3, and then suddenly it was 6 wickets, went down for 45 runs. It was Stuart Broad, another individual, you see, who had his own agenda, his own motivation. If you remember, we discussed the fact with Mariah that Broady wanted to have a crowd. He was worried. He went to see a psychologist to get his motivation up without a crowd. Well, clearly, that leaving him out of the first match provided all the motivation he needed. He motivated himself just by the hunger of getting back. And that spell with the second new ball, 3 wickets for 1 run. He took another important 3 wickets this morning in the second innings. So those two players, Broad and Stokes, were the difference between the two teams.
David, so we can, conclude that Stuart Broad, the fact that they left him out, he cemented his place and he proved to them why they made a big mistake, so much so that his exclusion from the game probably costed them the first test, right?
I'm not sure I'd go as far as that, but it certainly worked in terms of motivating Stuart Broad to perform in this, in this match. It would have been pretty brave to have left out Jimmy Anderson, in the first test. But now he's, Jimmy Anderson's poised to come back, I guess, for the last test. But sticking with Stuart Broad, he certainly made a crucial difference. And was it the fact that he had been left out that gave him that extra motivation? This was a performance that said, don't rotate me, don't drop me again. I'm here to stay.
I want to hear your assessment of the West Indies batting. We're going to zone in on the top three, of course, because when we think about top order, their job mainly in a team is to bring runs. And clearly, that top order, West Indies top order, has been failing miserably. Would you shuffle the squad? Would you change the squad moving forward? What would you do?
You're making me the chief selector now. I'm not sure I'd want Shai Hope and John Campbell in the same top order because they're both out of form. So there's certainly not room for both of them. There may not even be room for one of them. I think West Indies need to be innovative and flexible in their thinking. I know they've got 15 players in the main test squad, but they've also got 11 reserves who are here. And that's purely a distinction in name. They're all here to choose from. So why not pick the best possible team you can? But yeah, regarding that top order, both Shai Hope and John Campbell just look, well, I'm not going to say a walking wicket, but they do look vulnerable. Yeah. And I think they were both caught out on the crease. When you look at the dismissal of Shai Hope, it looked as though the ball had kept really low. But actually, when you looked at it closely, it was more the fact that he hadn't come forward to it. He was stuck on the crease. But maybe because of all the possibility of all the short pitch bowling, whatever, he just didn't look as though it didn't. I think no one watching expected him to go on. He's still got the class and the quality, but maybe a spell out of the team is now come to a point where that would be a good thing for West Indies.
David, I can't help but, try to find out what really went wrong with the West Indies, especially because of the momentum. The manner in which they played on the first test, it looked to me like a totally different team for the second test. Do you think the rain on day 3 would have affected them in some way? Maybe if they got to play on day 3, they would have done better?
I think it could only have helped them, actually, Mariah, because at least it gave them some time, to regroup and, a day of relaxation in the Manchester rain. That gave them a bit more time, didn't it, to come back out and regroup. And it meant that there was less time available in the match, less time to have to bat to save the game. And could they bat for 2 days? I mean, we saw, I think it was a hard-fought victory. I don't think it was a rollover victory, despite the fact that England did declare twice in the end. But I still think it was a hard-fought victory. West Indies took it into the last 20 overs. There were 19 overs left at the end. One other big partnership would probably have got them to safety. A credit to Brooks, who looked very, very good in both innings, and to Blackwood, who played another really good knock. So, there are positives moving forward. I think the key thing is for West Indies not to get demoralised, and for fans not to get demoralised. It's a live series, and if it wasn't for the fact that this was a biosecure bubble, we'd expect to see huge crowds piling in on Friday, because it's certainly got that lifted interest with the series now tantalisingly poised.
David, you said positive, and instantly I thought about Ben Stokes when, he stopped bowling in the middle of an over. Does that work for us? What's the latest with Ben Stokes? Is he damaged? What's wrong?
Waiting to get a clear picture on that, but he's certainly possibly over-bowled by Joe Root. Every time Joe Root wanted a wicket, he went to Stokes and he kept going with him, to the point where, Stokes, you felt that he'd given everything he could possibly give. So there's a little bit of doubt over that. We need to wait and see how Stokes appears in the morning. Obviously, if he would still play as a specialist batsman, even if for some reason he wasn't able to bowl. He went off sort of holding his groin. Maybe there's a problem there that will last until Friday, but nothing's been said on that yet. And obviously with Chris Wokes, you've got quite an able deputy as well, with Anderson. Archer's back eligible to play. Mark Wood is eligible to play. So England certainly have a pretty good choice, and Sam Curran to choose from. They've got six seamers there to choose from.
Yeah, David, as we speak, my understanding is that the selection for the third test is restricted to only the 15-man squad, and that the reserves aren't up for selection or aren't eligible for selection up to this point as we speak. Now, we know that when West Indies lose matches, the reaction is emotional, the reaction sometimes caustic. You hinted just now that John Campbell and Shai Hope, or you said first, you said John Campbell or Shai Hope, then you said even both could be in trouble for the third test. There's also the feeling about Shannon Gabriel and his fitness and if he can last out the third test and so on. How would you assess the selector's job in picking the 11 for the third test starting Friday? Because that's just a few days away, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got a tough job, obviously. I think Raheem Cornwall has to come into consideration. We saw Roston Chase won the battle of the spin bowlers. I thought he bowled a lot better than Dom Bess and actually asked a lot more questions than Dom Bess. So, you know, Roston Chase didn't let anyone down with his spin bowling, but could Raheem Cornwall provide a bit extra or an unknown X factor? Certainly does turn the ball a long way. Shannon Gabriel, as we discussed back on Friday, you know, did look a bit tired coming into this match and went off after just 10 overs. So I think you've got to look at replacing Shannon Gabriel. There's Shamar Holder, and I know a lot of people think highly of. Also, Raymond Reefer may come into the equation with his experience of playing in English conditions. But as far as, West Indies saying they're going to stick to the 15 to choose from, that's purely a decision, you know, for Cricket West Indies and for the tour management, because you have got a squad of 25 over there. So, you know, in the same way as Gabriel was bumped up from the reserves into the main team, surely if there's someone that West Indies want to get into the side, you know, Joshua De Silva, perhaps, after all those runs he scored. Shane Mosley as another opener. You know, so you've got talent there. They're all in one team. I think it's up to West Indies, surely, to give themselves the flexibility. No one from the ECB, as far as I know, is saying you have to choose from only those players and not those. So I think West Indies should give themselves all the options that needed to put out a team that's going to come back. And as you say, Lance, there's real momentum now with England. And so it's now the pressure will be on West Indies to fight back on Friday.
Yeah. On Friday's show or Thursday's show, Tino Best, in looking ahead to the West Indies batting in this test match, had suggested that if Shai Hope doesn't come off in this test match, his place is in jeopardy for the final test. Now, he averages 18 in test cricket, which is not acceptable. So since 2018, in fact. So this is not a case of him being out of form. He has had years of non-performance apart from the 2017 back-to-back hundreds at Headingley. But we know that he's very highly thought of based on, you know, how good he looks and his ODI batting average of 52. What is his problem, and could he or would he be disappointed if he's dropped?
There seems to be a big difference between his red ball form and his white ball form. You know, in one-day cricket, he's had a prolific year, hasn't he? So maybe he's become the Johnny Bairstow of the West Indies team, you know, someone who scores in white ball. But when the ball moves a bit more, he's shown to be vulnerable. How will he react? I don't know. I think surely the pressure, maybe he'll be relieved a little bit of the pressure because all the attention was on him in this match to score some runs and playing for his place, as it were. So, yeah, I feel that the confidence isn't there. It's time for a change, and it's up to the selectors to go through. Either Bonner would be the choice from the squad, I get, in terms of a like-for-like batting replacement, or could you put Jason Holder, Roston Chase, Blackwood and Dowditch all up a place and create a space, extra space for Raheem Cornwall there. Because, you know, you feel like when the skipper came in number 9 in the first innings, because they had a night watchman, number 8 in this innings, Jason Holder is still the man with the best batting average in this side over the last 2 years. So maybe one could be asking the skipper to take more responsibility for batting and move that very good middle to lower middle order up a place and create an extra space to allow Cornwall to play or Reefer to play.
David, Joe for Archer. Once he's cleared, after undergoing the COVID-19 test, based on his performance in the first test, and then considering the fact that he broke the biosecure bubble, does he walk into your team?
Well, he would. I would play him, And I think the indications are that the England management will also play him, in the sense that, you know, they've given him a fine and a written warning, but and that matter's been dealt with. So he's now eligible for selection. You know, maybe he seems that he's suffered enough. I know there's been a lot of concern to make sure that he's been okay during this period. You know, the players have been in constant contact with him, been making sure that they're looking after his well-being, because it has been I'm not defending his actions at all, and indeed, many people might say he got off lightly, but all the signs are that he's being considered for selection for Friday.
Yeah, David, thanks a lot for talking to us. We even saw some shots of him training in the nets because he was allowed, after consultation, we're told, with the West Indies cricket authorities, that they allowed him the opportunity to come out of his room and go onto the nets to do some practice in as biosecure manner as was humanly possible. David will be in touch ahead of the third test starting Friday. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Mariah.
Yeah, so real problems for the West Indies here, as David just agreed. The manner of the England victory today at Old Trafford would make them buoyant going into the third and deciding test match. And with the West Indies so disappointing in their batting innings, both batting innings, they would have to improve significantly coming into the third test on Friday to make England work.
Apart from just improving, Lance, I feel like just going into the third test, some sort of changes have to be made. Whether it is they, take out somebody, bring in somebody new, or they just shuffle the batting order. They can't go back into the test with the same squad and the same batting order. I just think that would be extremely ridiculous.
Yeah, well, within there, we'll be talking to Tino Best to get his views on what happened at Old Trafford in this pivotal, as it turned out to be, second test match, because now the series is wide open again. Remember, if the West Indies had held on for a draw here, they would confirm that they would hold the Wisden Trophy. So the West Indies then losing this second test match by 113 runs to England. England 469 for 9 declared and 129 for 3 declared. The West Indies 287 and 198 all out. Ben Stokes, the man of the match. We go to break. More on the SportsMax Zone after this.